I'll try to make it quick. All right, Aretha, we're good? All right, so it's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Edgefield County Council for a budget workshop. It's 6 o'clock on March 11th, 2025. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. We're going to start with the invocation and the pledge. I'll call on our clerk to the council, Aretha Eubanks, if she'll lead us in the invocation. If everyone will please stand.
May we please bow our heads. Dear gracious and loving Father, we come before you, God, to say thank you, Lord. Thank you for allowing us to be here this afternoon. Now, God, you know exactly why we are here. You know exactly what needs to be done. So, Father God, I ask that you lead and guide our minds, our thoughts, our words, as well as our actions. Lord, allow us to come into an agreement, even when we disagree, God. Because, Lord, we know you see the needs of everything that we call upon. So, Father God, have your way in this meeting. Strengthen the leaders right now, Father God. And we'll forever honor you and praise you. And in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, so I'd like to open with a brief preamble to tell everybody how this process will work for those who don't know, maybe watching online or here. So tonight is our budget workshop. So to remind council and our guests, at the workshop, we do not vote on any topic. This is a draft budget that the council and the administrator are here to discuss. This is a less formal meeting. We can ask the administrator to make changes to this draft budget before we take it up for first reading at our April meeting, but only if we have a consensus to do that. First tonight, we'll hear the administrator's report on the budget as he walks through the memo he provided us. Then we'll go through the budget page by page just to ensure we've covered everything that council wants covered. I'll be moving through the page by page pretty quickly as usual since you've had it for a week to study, so you've probably marked anything that you have a question about. Once we finish the page by page look, then we'll ask for comments from those elected officials and department heads who wish to be heard. As a reminder, during the first, second, and third readings of the budget, we can discuss any line item or other topic in the budget that council wants to discuss. However, for the three readings, we won't be going through the memo in detail again, except for the first reading, since the administrator needs to set the groundwork by going through his memo again for citizens who might not be watching or reading about this meeting. However, we will not go through the budget page by page again at any of these readings. At the next three meetings, we'll just discuss what the administrator recommends and what council wants to discuss. During the three readings, we can vote to amend this budget at any time. Are there any questions from council members on the process I've described for our meeting tonight or moving forward? Everybody good? All right. If not, then I'll remind you that this budget comes to you put together by staff and comes recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. So I'll ask Mr. Talbert if he has anything to add since he is the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Everything looks good so far.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Talbert. We appreciate the work you did, and I thank Mr. Moody for joining in the meetings leading up to the final budget, so appreciate him doing that. And I also want to say that Mr. Goodell has spent a great deal of time to bring us a balanced budget with some game-changing additions. I want to say a big thank you to him, and also a big thank you to Bruce Cooley, our finance director, for working to put this budget together for us. And of course, thank Mr. Talbert and all the elected officials and department heads and others who were involved in this process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the administrator so he can walk us through his budget memo.
Thank you. So over the past 3 years, the county has experienced strong residential growth. While this has resulted in additional revenues for the county, growth brings increased need for services. With this budget, the county will meet the ongoing needs of the citizens while ensuring fiscal stability. Edgefield County employees are our most important asset. Last year, we gave them a 5% raise and covered individual employee health insurance premiums again. The annualized consumer price index, which is a mark of inflation, the one that we use here, through January 2025 in the southern region was 2.8%. A little over 2 years ago, we set a goal to increase employee cost of living wages at a rate higher than CPI to consistently close the wage gap with surrounding counties. The implementation of the STEP program and merit increases beyond the cost of living adjustment would ensure that more experienced and high-performing employees received additional compensation. We have included a minimum 3.5% cost of living increase in this year's budget, an average 0.5% merit increase at a range of 0 to 1%, depending on employees' rating for eligible employees. An eligible employee is someone who has been here at least a few months. And a 2.5% step increase for employees under the midpoint of their pay grade. And that again applies to an employee that's been here at least 1 year. We propose to continue the 401k match with a proposed match of up to $1,200 per participating employee. Competition remains high for qualified employees. Our employees are again a major focus of this budget. An additional priority is public safety and quality of life. We are proposing to fund one additional employee in the sheriff's office with the possibility of a 50% funded additional employee and one in recreation. And the 50% is an SRO. We'll get to that a little later in this document. Based on the audited reserves as of June 30th, 2024, the general fund has a fund balance of $7,698,698 in unrestricted reserves. We have more in restricted and committed funds. In fiscal year 2025 and 2026, the council will designate $713,859 from the fund balance. Our general fund operating budget for this year is $16,973,794. After utilizing the $713,859 from our reserves, the county will have $6,984,839, which equates to 4.9 months of unrestricted reserves available, which is a good cushion for the county. And as a reminder, per county council, by ordinance, we must maintain at least 4 months of reserves. So major highlights in this year's budget are a 3.5% cost of living increase. The proposed cost of living increase will be applied to individual salaries and again, 2 salary bands. So that will also increase starting wages. A 0.5% merit pay increase based on employee evaluations. Continuation of a 2.5% 8-year step program. The difference between the minimum of a salary band of a grade and the midpoint is 20%. By giving a 2.5% increase calculated on the minimum point of an employee's salary band, each year over 8 years, an employee hired at the minimum would reach midpoint in 8 years. This is separate from cost of living increases, which themselves move the salary bands. Step increases will cease once the employee reaches midpoint. Merit increases do not. They continue. Continuation of an employer match on 401k at 50% of each dollar contributed by the employee. The employer match this fiscal year may not exceed $1,200. The match will be revisited for each budget cycle. Continued coverage of the individual health insurance premiums for employees. Last year, the county's portion of health insurance premiums increased 11%, and Retirement One. This year, insurance is proposed to increase 7.5%. but the final numbers will not be available until August 2025. The creation of 2 full-time positions in the general fund, funding for the eventual hire of 8 full-time positions in EMS. EMS, again, is a special revenue fund. Establishment of funding for a new EMS headquarters that will also house emergency management and the Emergency Operations Center. Most departments requested increases in travel and training budgets. This is due to an increase in the cost of courses, an increase in the IRS mileage reimbursement, and an increase in the General Services Administration per diem rate by which we reimburse employees for meals. A 12.5 mil increase to the EMS Special Revenue Fund to fund EMS operations, and a 3.75 mil increase to the debt service to pay for the construction of an EMS headquarters and renovation of a substation. I would now like to go through the various departments, and any significant changes will be noted from last year. County Council, there were no significant changes to the budget from last year. Administration, there were no significant changes. Building and Planning requested an increase in the training budget. The Clerk of Court. The Clerk of Court requested $15,000 for modification of the family court for safety. A request was also made for an increase of $4,000 in the printing budget to provide reprints of historical documents and original publications. Now, this is for archives, which is in the administration building. The archive serves under the Clerk of Court. The Coroner's Office requested an increase in pay for both assistant coroners of $1,250 before cost of living adjustments based on increased workload and a small increase in the administrative cost. We agree. The Veterans Office requested a small increase in the training budget. We agree. Information Technology. There are no significant changes other than a 5% salary increase upon completion of mandatory training. This was part of our IT director's original employment agreement. This was all planned out for the last couple of years. The Magistrate's Office will have a reduction in salaries upon the retirement of part-time Magistrate Judge Mosley. In probate, there were no significant changes. Voter registration. Increases in travel and training were requested, and an increase of $2,000 for the maintenance and service contract for voting machines. We agree. In GIS, an increase in the travel training budget was requested. The assessor did not request significant changes. As you may recall, we increased the assessor's budget last year in preparation for reassessment, and those monies continue. The tax collector, there was no significant changes on the expense side, but the tax collector did request a 20% increase in delinquent notice fees to bring us in line with neighboring counties. This is credited to revenue. We agree. The treasurer requested an increase in the training budget and $4,000 for a money counter, printer, and 2 scanners. We agree. The auditor did not request significant changes. In countywide, which is our overall administrative budget, group insurance will increase from $1,123,750 to an anticipated $1.3 million due to the addition of 2 new employees and an anticipated 7.5% increase in employer premiums. We proposed $20,000 for internships for several county offices, 5 in the fall, 5 in the spring. This is in coordination with the high school, and requests for interns came from Animal Control, the Treasurer's Office, Recreation, and EMS. And we believe that this is a good program to enter into. For the sheriff's office is requesting a desk officer for the new law enforcement center. We recommend this addition for front office security, court security, and customer service. The sheriff requested increases in fuel and auto repair, which we support. Automotive equipment has again been removed from this year's budget and will instead be funded with the remaining plutonium funds. This will help overcome uncertainties in new facility operation costs by reducing this burden in the general fund. We currently have a discussion with Edgefield County School District over the funding for 4 SRO positions and hope to have that worked out prior to the second reading. Our proposal is to remove one from the Career Center and have the school partially fund that lieutenant position, but this is dependent on district funding. And we should learn more prior to first reading. The detention center, the sheriff did not request significant changes. Animal control, the sheriff did not request significant changes. And again, a couple of the proposed interns would be designated to this facility. County maintenance, one new pressure washer at a cost of $1,300 is requested, and we agree. For recreation is requesting one additional full-time employee. This will allow the presence of an employee at every game. This is important due to the increase in negative interactions between parents, coaches, officials, and opposing teams. We have also added pickleball, yoga, and in discussion to add martial arts. These items will be reflected in the revenue side. And we have an opportunity to partner with Clemson Extension to grow 4-H in the county. The new Star Park is in the design permitting phase and should go out for bid this summer. We will have access to the Land and Water Conservation grant funds. I have October in this document, but actually that will be this summer, earlier than expected. Recreation funding has increased substantially through fundraisers, donations, and sponsorships. Roads and bridges, funding for a pickup truck and an asphalt roller are included. Economic development, we are continuing our payment to the Economic Development Partnership, $80,000 this year. The Industrial Park Special Revenue Fund had a balance of $515,039 at the end of January. Emergency medical services. The EMS fund has seen a drop in its reserve balance in recent years. We did increase funding by 1 mil last year and 1.3 mils the year before, and this has helped. The EMS fund is currently negative by $78,000. It fluctuates wildly. It's come up a bit because of the influx in property taxes. Based on call volumes, we need to add a 4th ambulance. To add a 4th ambulance, 24 hours, we will need additional space and 8 new employees. There is also not an ambulance and equipment line in the operations budget. At this time, additional funding will be required from a millage increase of approximately 12.5 mils for operations to the EMS Special Revenue Fund and 3.75 mils to debt service for construction of a 3rd station. We are actively seeking alternative funding to replace the need for the 3.75 mils, but we must prepare in case those efforts fail. We agree with the EMS budget as submitted. The total millage increase, inclusive of personnel, operations, equipment, ambulances, and a new headquarters, is 16.25 mils. We would begin this process with a build-up of a 24-hour QRV transitioning into a 12-hour ambulance. And if all of this is approved, we would finally be at a 24-hour ambulance and a station. And that would substantially increase our EMS service for the county. Solid waste fee. The solid waste fund is relatively stable. There's a 3.9% increase in payments to the Tri-County Solid Waste Authority from $819,000 to $851,700. And these are last year's numbers that are carried forward. We have not received the final numbers for this year. This is due primarily to equipment cost and a poor recycling market. That continues. The budget includes a 3.5% increase in pay for convenience center employees. This is administered by the senior center. The solid waste fund is beginning to about break even. This indicates that a fee increase will likely be required in 2 to 3 years. Victims' Bill of Rights. The Victims' Bill of Rights Fund provides for Sheriff's Office assistance to those who are victims and their families. A portion of the fines and forfeitures are returned to the county to fund this budget. However, in recent years, the funding has not adequately supported the position. We will need to transfer $62,342 from the general fund to the Victims' Bill of Rights Fund. This is found underneath the sheriff's budget. Piedmont Technical College. Last year, we increased our payment to Piedmont Tech to $90,000. This year, we recommend holding our payment to $90,000. Their request was $232,869. The ABBE Library did not request an increase this year, but as council will recall, last week we approved monies for county building improvements. This includes the canopy outside of the library and new carpeting, which is seriously needed. Miscellaneous items. We recommend continuing to fund the following at these levels. The Beckman Center, $2,000. Senior Center, $3,000. Upper Savannah Council of Governments, $19,325. If you recall, last year we funded Clemson Extension at $1,500. They have reduced their ask to $900, but then asked us to partner in 4-H with them at a cost of $1,400. This, we believe, is important because they will have a 4-H agent here 50% of the time, which is an excellent opportunity for our children. Sometimes they are planning to use the Scout Hut for their meetings. The Tri-County Public Defender. The Public Defender has requested that Edgefield, McCormick, and Saluda contribute towards a part-time investigator. While we don't know what McCormick and Saluda might do with this request, our portion would be $24,431 toward a part-time investigator. Looking at their budget and their management of it, we would agree with this request. The opioid grant. We have established a standalone budget for the opioid settlement, much like an SRO budget, to accept grant revenue and expend it on an approved program. We have applied for a $245,500 grant this year from our guaranteed funds. There are guaranteed funds that we have to apply for and justify our use of them. If approved, this budget worksheet will be adjusted to reflect that. It could be just before or just after our first budget reading, hopefully before, when we get news of that grant. So a special thank you to the Finance Committee, the Chair, Albert Talbert, Dean Campbell, and Finance Director Bruce Cooley, and Office Manager Taz Potts for organizing the budget and making my many edits. Thank you to Council for thought-provoking questions and input. Thank you to all elected officials and department heads for your input and willingness to compromise. And a special thank you to our Assistant Administrator, Hart Clark, for his assistance, especially in checking my math. Beyond that, I would like to say that it was a very smooth process this year. Everyone came to the table with good ideas and a willingness to temper their request in an effort to support their employees with increases this year, and I appreciate that. Do we have any questions?
Not a question, but I think you inadvertently skipped one thing it might be worth going back to. I think your eyes got off on the page where you have countywide.
Yes.
Right under that, you went from countywide to sheriff, and you didn't talk about emergency management. So since there's a reduction there, it might be worth.
Yes. And emergency management, a while back, we provided funding for firefighters, continuing education, training, in the amount of $25,000. And in actuality, they're using about $10,000 of that money. They have not approached the full amount. And it's primarily because we're breaking these large courses like firefighter level 1 and level 2 into shorter courses. So when they complete them, there's less hours that we pay for. So that is the reason for that reduction, $25,000 to $10,000.
All right, thank you. And then also, you didn't point this out, but I want to point this out because we've talked about it so much over the past 6 or 8 months. On the EMS millage increase that you have as all total, if you sweep everything together, it's 16.25 mils, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So I'll remind council that all the discussion we had up until this, till the budget process started, was the administrator was estimating 17.5 mils. So that number has come down a little, just to point that out.
It has, and that's partially due to the approval of the GEAR program for set-off debt collection, partially due to the anticipated approval of a user fee, and part of it just going through the budget and realizing that we had some things in there that we didn't really need, so we were able to pare it down a little bit.
All right, any questions or comments from the administrator on the memo that he's just been through?
I have a few. Sure. Okay. So, just going back to clerk of court, I just want to, make sure I understand this, increase of 4,000. This is for things where citizens may come in and want copies of stuff, and we're copying it for them. And then we turn around and charge them too, so we revenue from that as well, correct?
Sort of. We do that now. We follow that process right now, but there are many documents that are commonly requested to be viewed or copied, and we would go ahead and make copies and bind those copies of those documents, maybe put together a series of letters from the archives or a series of genealogy reports from the archives and have those available for purchase. And then there's original content, things like going around and documenting all the historical markers and doing a write-up of those and having that type of thing for sale. And that's why we're requesting $4,000 to print some of these things, and we also have added a revenue line because we will recoup the money for that printing.
Plan to sell them too?
Yes.
Okay. And, IT, when do we expect him to complete the mandatory training?
That should be approaching summertime.
Okay. And, GIS, where's the travel involved there?
The travel in GIS has to do with the training on new software and the software updates every year, and just the additional cost of that training. The courses have gone up tremendously, and I should mention that as well on the building side. The courses have almost doubled for our building inspectors. It's people, I think, have taken advantage of inflation in the news to raise these things.
Solid waste, I would like to ask, because you said these were last year's numbers, is there any indication, and Jerry and Mr. Albert, y'all may be able to speak to this too, since y'all serve on that. Is there any indication that this year's numbers will be significantly different than last year's for the budget?
Based on what we're talking about, I think we're gonna deal with tires, taking less tires this year, and that was like a $24,000 loss last year. So I would say, I don't think it's gonna get any, it should stay close to what we are based on Saluta's request to do something with the tires, and I think everybody's in agreement with it, that we're,
We know that there's some legislation in the
Yes.
state to increase that tire fee, and the notation here is the fee may need to go up in a couple, 2 to 3 years. Do y'all anticipate if this fee is adjusted, could this offset this need to increase in a few years?
yeah, I would say so. I would think it would be a minimal, if anything, but like I said, I would look for it to stay even and maybe even reduce our cost next year if everything goes as according to the legislation side, and also what the three counties plan on doing with the tire situation.
And it says we have the poor recycling market, and I know we've talked about, what are they recycling right now?
Cardboard and metals.
Yeah.
We make, I say we probably break even on cardboard, and I think David's been in touch with a couple of local vendors that want to make a proposal to us, and they tell us they can make more money, give us more money than what we're getting now. So David's working on that or will be working on that.
That's
So,
That's been a tremendous issue with our solid waste account. The fall off on recyclables has been disastrous for us.
but I
The
think,
recycling issue as a whole has been misunderstood, and,
yes,
and
and like I
people
said,
don't
I think you're
understand.
gonna mainly get into the bottle situation, and I think some of the sites have even taken the plastic bottles out because, like you said, you go there and they're full or they're closed and people bring them there, but basically recycled bottles there's so many restrictions on them. The label's gotta be off, the top's gotta be off, there's no money in it, the state doesn't mandate it anymore. So really why, it goes to the same place your household garbage goes to at the end of the day.
Right.
So why add the extra cost on our end when on the other end, it's all going in the same pile? So,
That's correct. Maybe 15 years ago or so, you would break even on glass, but you would make money on the other items, and that is no longer the case. I remember people setting up bins for white paper because it was a huge profit
Right.
deal, but that's just not the case anymore.
And I wanted to thank y'all for including the recycling center worker, the convenience center workers, to remember them and giving them this increase as well. So I think they might have gotten overlooked for many years, and
Right.
that they're on y'all's radar and y'all remember them. Thank y'all for that. The only other comments I have are, I will just go back and just, again, circle back to EMS and just say, I appreciate, first of all, let me say, I appreciate that you separated the operations and the building side of things out. I do like that we can see where the operations issues lie and what the building, and we're separating the two out now. But again, for me, I still go back to, I would like to see the building not be funded through the mills. I still think that I would like to see all the cost share be shared through all the citizens, and for me, that's the penny tax. So that's still where I am leaning. So those are my comments.
Well, I would just like to say, I'd like to thank David. He put a lot of work in it. Also, Cooley, he did a lot of work in it. And it takes some when you're dealing with figures and all. I tell you, we make a few and change and scratch out, but David done an excellent job, and we definitely appreciate it, his time and effort.
I just have one question that's on the economic development. I know you said we continue our payment to the Economic Development Partnership. I was asked, do we pay the entire 80,000 or what part? If not, about how much do we pay the economic development?
We pay $80,000. I believe it's split in quarterly payments. Is that correct, Bruce?
Thank you.
Quarterly payments.
And I did want to clarify on your Tri-County Public Defender, you said that, it's Tri-County, so this is our portion, what we are being asked, and we don't know what the other two counties will do. If we approve and go forward, we will make sure that he doesn't work for those counties, then that he'll just be working for us, correct?
So this is not a set amount, this is a ceiling for work, and we would only pay on invoices for Edgefield County work. But
Okay.
this would be a ceiling, this is not the same as saying, we guarantee that we're gonna pay this group or this person this amount of money. This is the cap.
Okay.
And this is inclusive of workman's comp, social security, things of that nature.
But we'll just be paying on the Edgefield portion
That
of
is
things,
correct.
so,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Want to make sure there was a way of tracking, and we were sure we weren't paying for him in these other counties if they weren't gonna contribute. And they may, I don't know, but.
Right,
I
but
don't
we
really
can't, and I
Right.
made it clear to the public defender that we have no influence whatsoever. We can't do this in coordination
Right.
with the other counties. We don't know what they may decide, so.
Do we know if they've taken it up at all? Do we have any idea?
I do know that McCormick County is considering the request. They've asked questions back. I don't know about Saluda County right now. And I will also say that the public defender rarely uses their entire budget. They usually come in under maybe 20% or so.
Thank you.
Did you get your question answered?
Yes, sir.
You have any other ones? You good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm good now.
I've got one quick one now, then I'll add some more under our comment section, but I know you don't have, you can wait to the end and when you figure this up, but on 16.25 mills, sometime can you give me how much that would be an increase on a $300,000 house, 2 relatively new cars and a camper? Now, you don't have to do it right now, but sometime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think
The last thing I will mention, because I want to mention this since Ms. Ireland brought it up. So this is the workshop, so this is why we bring these things up too. And I'll end up probably bringing this up in one of the readings because I'm sure it'll come up for some vote at some point as an amendment. But so keep in mind that the 12.5 mills, which is operations, and the 3.75 mills, which is buildings, let's say, buildings and land. Those two things, while they're separate, they are integrated. It isn't a pick list. You can't say, well, let's go with 3.75 because that's cheaper. Well, you can buy all the land and build all the buildings, but if you don't buy the ambulances and the people, you wasted a lot of money with an empty building. Conversely, if you decide to fund EMS and you buy all these ambulances and all these people, but have nowhere to put them because you don't do the building or a building, then there's a mismatched
that's right.
things there. So those two numbers are integrated in some way. So you really have to be careful on what you decide, what we decide to do, because you can't, again, say, we'll do all of one and none of the other.
Right.
That's a non-compute.
No.
That's a waste of taxpayer money. That's what that means. You got to integrate those two thoughts. So just remember, whatever we want to do in operations, you got to have a place to put them. And if you do nothing, zero, then we're in the hole over $300,000, and that'll come out of the general fund, and that'll be a whole different ballgame because you got to take $350,000-$60,000 out of the general fund to just get us to the number zero, and work up from there. So I just ask you to keep all those little thoughts in mind as we go along. So I just want to bring that up. That was all I had. Did anybody else have anything on the memo that we need to talk about? All right, then let's go, as I said earlier, page by page. So if you'll turn to the budget, which is the next, after the last page of the memo, and if you hadn't looked closely, you'll notice at the top right-hand corner, it says page 1 of 106. So that's what I'm reading from when I say page 1, page 2, et cetera. So again, I go through this pretty quickly because you'll stop me if you have a question that you've already noted earlier in your study. So I'm just going to stop me when you have a question on a page. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, page 21, page 22, page 23, page 24, page 25, page 26, page 27, page 28, page 29, page 30, page 31, page 32, page 33, page 34, page 35, page 36, page 37, page 38, page 39, page 40, page 41, page 42, page 43, page 44, page 45, page 46, page 47, page 48, page 49, page 50, page 51, page 52, page 53, page 54, page 55, page 56, page 57, page 58, page 59, page 60, page 61, page 62, page 63, page 64, page 65, page 66, page 67, page 68, page 69, page 70, page 71, page 72, page 73, page 74, page 75, page 76, page 77, page 78, page 79, page 80, page 81, page 82, page 83, page 84, page 85, page 86, page 87, page 88, page 89, page 90, page 91.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, total tax revenues, is that for what just got added up to there, or is this where the EMS starts?
Total tax revenues, this would be, I'm sorry, this would be the special revenue fund millage addition plus the pre-existing
Okay, so
millage
this is
right now.
2.756 is including the millage increase.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, it's the
okay.
current EMS millage plus the proposed increased millage.
Okay, going down to 3.88 million, where's that number generated from?
The The 3.88 is the total of all revenues inclusive of beginning on page 90. If you see the various categories, they add up on the black line at the bottom of each category. And then you add those bolder numbers and you get the total revenues. So
Okay, so the big jump is the millage increase.
the big jump is the
Okay.
millage increase. But this is inclusive of everything from set-off debt to grants to the collections for service, everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else on page 91? Okay. Page 92.
Yes. The 1.78, how many employees is this going to increase in employees? Is that all 8 employees that you had in your comments earlier?
It is.
Is the big increase?
Yes.
And we're going to hire them all after if this millage passes, we're going to go out and get 8 employees right now?
We're not going to get all of them right now. It's going to be a phased approach. But recall that this revenue also I have to reflect what 8 new employees would cost, and that's in the budget. But the additional revenue that we would receive with the increase will first have to overcome the deficit
Okay.
that we have now.
Anything else on page 92? Page 93. Page 94. Page 95. Page 96. Page 97. Page 98. Page 99. Page 100. Page 101. Page 102. Page 103. Page 104. Page 105. Page 106. And then there's an additional page you just added tonight.
That is correct. That is the addendum to the budget for the EMS construction debt service for a new building.
Any questions on any of the pages of the budget that we haven't answered? All right, I know that's tedious, but I appreciate everybody bearing with us on that. All right, council, if there's no more on that, the next item on the agenda is the comments on the budget from the elected officials and department heads. So I'll start with the elected officials. I know we have some here tonight. I didn't know if the elected officials have any comments on the budget the council needs to hear.
So just want to be absolutely clear, don't disagree with anything David said, but I want to be crystal clear that my priority is the SRO supervisor. Don't want to air his dirty laundry, but the school board has put some restrictions on the way we operate, because they have the biggest chunk, and I understand that thinking. But we're not getting the job done. It's our second largest team. It's a team of 10. We have 10 SROs in this county, and I need that supervisor to continue the operation the way it should be done. So that clearly is my priority. The court security officer is my second priority. Thank you for having me.
And for clarification to the administrator, with what the sheriff just said, so we're waiting on the school board at this point to do something?
They have requested a change, and that change is to take the lieutenant out of the career center because he has to leave from time to time to do supervisory duties or training duties and so forth, and replace that person with an SRO that they would continue to pay for because they are requesting this, and that would then put the lieutenant on our dime. Essentially, we are requesting that they foot half the bill for that. That is our request to them. They are considering that request. And I am very aware where the sheriff's priorities are. I am, but I had to go with what we know. We know his second priority is this desk officer, And we know that our ask is 50% for this SRO, so that's how I set the budget up. And we also know that it's going to change as soon as the school gets back with us. We don't know how it will change, but hopefully we'll work it out before first reading.
Okay.
Yes, but I'm on top of that.
I know we are, I
Yes.
just want everybody to know that. I
Mhm.
want to be crystal clear on that.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, sir.
I would like to say, you know, I know that when they leave, I go in very early, to get our doors set up and everything like that. And, it's dark. So, and I always felt safe since they were down the road. But they're gonna be gone and a floodlight or something, when I get there, it very much made me feel safe because I'm the only one there. And when I leave, it's dark, because I leave, when it's busy season, I leave at 7:30, and it's dark. So, my security is gone. They're gone, so I would like to beef up something for my sake, because I'm the last one to leave. I talked to David also today, I had him come by the office, and there were some concerns that I had that, been bugging him terribly. And, so we discussed that, a sink, we don't have a sink to wash our dishes in that office, in that building. And, we have funds that we have never used for the dog decal funds. And, so I have asked him to help me kind of bring that building with the tax assessors and the tax, collection and the auditor and the treasurer and the grant and the recreation up to par, because we have to wash our utensils in the bathroom. And, so he's helping me with that. And so there's several things that, you know, I would like to get up to par with and get in there, and so David's helping me with that, so I just kind of want to bring that to the attention.
So to explain to council, if you're facing the Nice building, if you go in the front doors, all the restrooms are to the right. And that building is on a slab. They created in the back of that building on the left, the break room area with the microwaves and coffee pots and everything else. There's no plumbing there. There's no way to do a sink. You could do a sink, you could take the water lines overhead, but where do you put the drain? It's on a thick concrete foundation, and then you drop down over to building standards and you have a crawl space. So they have their kitchen area and everything. The treasurer actually had a great idea today, and that was that we could come directly through a wall from the rear bathroom, which is behind locked doors. It's where the public doesn't have access. And we could put a sink there. It's not perfect. It's a little walk to the break area, but at least you don't have to have food on your hands, go in the bathroom door, all of that. But it's very inexpensive to do, and we have found a way to take that into a drain. So that has nothing to do with the current budget. That'll happen well before then. And the floodlight as well. We'll go ahead and take care of that. We'll get that done.
I didn't bring that up. I forgot about it until when I went to leave today in daylight. Today, and I thought, oh, right. But, you know, I do hate to see them go. I know they're glad, but.
Joe, from a security standpoint of view, in the evenings when you're there, and I know you're there on the weekend from time to time, where do you park?
I park right beside, in that doc's office.
Yeah, right at the back door there.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking out loud, when you're there and you know you're by yourself, why not park right outside the front door?
I don't even have a key to the front door.
Well, I mean, that's a minor change. That's a
We'll
minor
fix
I think
that in a
they had to
minute.
change that spot. I'm not sure why, but I don't have a key to the door, and I'm just.
Yeah, and two, don't ever leave that, and you know you're alone something's out of the ordinary, just call dispatch. And we'll have the Edgefield police officer come to you. So I feel for you, I understand you, and I feel for you. We'll do what we can do to help.
Anything else tonight from the treasurer? Is that it for you? Is that it for you?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
When it says no consent, because I do have gun license and everything, I thought, maybe I need to hit them up with my gun license.
I wouldn't tell all the secrets. All right, well, thank you. Then we've heard from our elected officials. I think, there's nobody elected that's left. So department heads that are here, anything that we need to hear from department heads? Everybody?
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
good
yeah.
system now.
Oh, yeah.
You have to bear with me, I've lost my voice, but, this year's budget's a little bit different for EMS because, this year we're requesting more funding to support the EMS service. I know we've talked about it for a long time, but we really feel like this is the year that this needs to happen. When David and I started working on the budget, we kind of set a game plan out, worked on it, and we kind of ended in the same position on what we thought about how this should be funded. So we feel like we prepared a budget that addresses the operational needs and then those, the new building, which is a definite need that we'll have now and into the future. And to kind of explain the staffing, the equipment, and the ambulances, these things will kind of come at different phases. So what I want council to understand is that July 1st doesn't mean there's new ambulances sitting there, there's new equipment, there's new staff. It's going to take some time to get those things. As far as staffing, the initial thing we were going to do was move our QRV that operates 12 hours now to 24 hours. So that'll leave a paramedic supervisor in the county at all times, day and night. Right now, we don't have that service at night. So there are times that if all 3 trucks are gone, there's no EMS provider that's on the clock ready to respond. So that's the first move we want to make. As far as the staffing, we're looking at ways to incorporate with the high school to get some EMT training. I've worked with our regional education institution. We can actually do EMT training here in Edgefield and use our current staff to do the instruction. So instead of having to try to recruit people, we can find people that are interested in it and get them trained and have them a job. So if they live here in Edgefield, we can train them in here in Edgefield, and then they can get a job here. The ambulances are still going to take time to get. I reached out to our vendor today. The truck that council approved to order back in 2022 is currently it's in production right now. So that 3-year mark of getting an ambulance has not really changed. Dave and I will probably be coming back next month to talk about signing an agreement to get us on the list to purchase 2 ambulances. Because again, it's 2025 now. This may be 2028 before these ambulances will arrive here in Edgefield. And from what I'm hearing in the industry, that timeline does not look like it's going to shorten up anytime soon. So that'll be kind of the second longest leg. But we have a remount coming back this summer, and then that new truck. The equipment will be easier to get. Most of that stuff is in stock, but again, we'll have to get that funding going first. The main priority is that we want to get out of the hole, get back to zero, and be a sustainable department. So we hope that council sees all those things, which I feel like you do. And this not only helps our citizens, but helps those folks that go out and take care of these people day and night. So we appreciate all your support, and if there's any questions I could answer for you guys, I'm more than happy to.
I have a quick question. First of all, I want to say, I think we all share that we want to get EMS out of the hole and up to par. So I always just want to be sure I lead with that we all, there will be, and there are differences of opinions of how we'll get there, but our main priority for sure is to shore you up and make sure we are not at zero anymore, and going forward, you are working with the numbers that you need to work with. I did want to ask, you talked about the internship and the training, and just curious here. I know you're going to do that through Thurman. Are we doing it through Fox Creek too? Have we looked at those possibilities?
So
I'm just curious.
the internship initially may just start as finding out there's some interest in EMS. To host an EMT class, we have to have at least 8 students. So if we can maybe get 4 between Fox Creek and Thurman,
Okay.
we probably could do that. And then that's just coordinating with the schools. Ideally to do it while they're at school, so they wouldn't have to come in the evening when they get out of school. Most EMT classes are taught in the evening traditionally. If we do an EMS academy here in Edgefield, that would be during the day. We would essentially bring them in as a new employee, and their job would be to learn how to become an EMT. So we would compensate them for that time. Again, there'd be restrictions with that, as they have to meet certain standards to stay in the program. But it's becoming more difficult to find people that are interested in EMS, just like law enforcement and firefighting. Those are all very demanding jobs, but the fortunate thing is we have a way to do that training here in Edgewood. We don't have to send them to Columbia or send them to Aiken or Greenwood to get this training done, but.
I really like the idea. I like that y'all are pursuing that. I just wondered if we were doing both, were we doing both, or were we seeking
So
applicants
we're
from
exploring
both?
both options.
Good.
The internship may just be just that of, hey, I'm interested, I may be interested in law enforcement or EMS or just governmental operations. If we can garner enough interest, we want to do a class, so rising, so juniors and seniors that are graduating, this would provide them a way to have a job literally when they graduate.
Dr. Kenyon's, when they come out with their certificate through her, they go straight to work. So I like that, I think, and I appreciate y'all doing that. And yeah. Thank you. That's mine.
I have a quick question related to this. The training that you're talking about that you guys can do for people who have no training, how long does the training take to get
So-
certified?
It's 200 hours. If we do it in-house, we probably can do that in 6 to 8 weeks. We can accelerate the class as fast as we want, or we can stretch it out as long. It's kind of up to us. What I want to do is talk with other counties that have done this already, kind of find out what was successful about it, what wasn't successful. Sometimes if you rush things, there's some places that have done this in 4 weeks. That's a lot of information to try to retain in 4 weeks. So we want to make sure that we do it correctly, where when they're done, that they feel confident that they can go out and do this. So, but it's roughly about 200 contact hours, and that includes their clinical and classroom time. So we can kind of divvy that up however we want to. Ideally, if we do the academy, it'd probably be a Monday through Friday thing that they would be in class and do that training. It'd be their job.
Thank you.
What counties have done it? Do we know? Are any of our neighbors doing
So
it?
Aiken has done it, Lexington has done it, a lot of your bigger counties have done it. They've had good success with them. The problem is that the tech schools, people that go, they may not, it's kind of it's in the course catalog if you're interested in it, but we could do the advertising, do the recruitment. And ideally, we'd like to find people who live here in Edgefield County to do this.
I'm for it.
Yes, one on your $71,000 equipment, machines and equipment durable. Is that your 10-year equipment that you had on the list one time, that it's good for 10 years, like your stretchers and your Lucas
Yes.
and all that?
So if you recall, the council approved us to get three or four new monitors. What we're gonna do is with this is that all of our durable equipment, I'm estimating 10 years, a decade is what they will last. The current equipment we have has lasted longer than that, but it requires more maintenance, more repair. What we'll do is we'll find the equipment that needs to be replaced, that has a desperate need to be replaced, replace that equipment first, and then we'll each year we'll try to replace equipment.
How many equipment items are on that next list, and when do you need them?
So the next thing would be our CPR machines. Those we'll actually have to replace by the end of this year because the manufacturer is no
Okay.
longer gonna service them. So that would be the first need. And then probably our stretchers after that, and we can kind of do those in a sequence.
Well, that's your 10-year item that
10
you
years.
have, okay.
So the 10-year items would be the monitors, the stretchers, the stair chairs, the CPR machines, the equipment that has a lifespan greater than 1 year, not really more than 10, but is stationary equipment that stays on every ambulance. It's not considered disposable.
Okay, good. Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We've heard counsel then from our elected officials and our department heads. So if there's nothing else from those guys that has come up since, then I think we must be good with that. As we get in the home stretch here, I'll ask the administrator, now that you've heard any other comments and us, is there anything else you want to add before we get close to ending here?
Just a reminder that this budget is complete, but there will be minor changes before first reading. And as those come up, I will let you know, and we'll try to, at least a week before first reading, get you a revised book. And in that book, in the front cover, there will be a list of the changes made, so you'll be able to flip straight to that page and see what that is. That's all.
And I'll remind council too, and the public, that if you notice, we don't have public input tonight, and that's deliberate. This was our time to discuss it with all of us in the county. I mean, they can come, it's an open meeting, but this is time to hear from those who are affected by the budget, those who have to approve the budget, all the questions we need answered. So that's what this is. The public's chance comes, of course, with each reading, public comments, and the public hearing that'll happen at second reading for the budget. And as I like to say, council's available the other 29 days of the month for anybody who wants to talk to us. So we're always available if somebody wants to talk to us. They don't have to wait to come to a meeting. So with that, council, I have nothing else to add or to say, but I'll ask you as a final check before we adjourn, is there anybody who has any other comments?
I'd like to touch on what the sheriff said about the SRO. I'm not sure people realize how important those guys are. They're your first line of defense for your kids, our grandkids. And it just seems to be some people out there don't look at it that way, and I don't think any of us five are any of those people. But the other source of funding, which he mentioned earlier, in my mind, we will fund that officer, whether they fund it or not. That's just going to be my opinion. But they train, and I think talking to those two, they're ready to defend our kids, and I think we need to support them wholeheartedly. Whether the school board does their thing or not, I think we need to do ours. And the other thing dealing with EMS, I'm kind of in line with Tiffany. Y'all know where I stand. The building is important, but like I said, I think there's some money out there. The LEC took 6 years to build. For the 1% sales tax next time around to help fund it, grants, money that Columbia can get us, Mr. Hickson, Clyburn, and Mr. Massey. And as far as the other one, that's why I asked questions about the time frame when the employees are needed. I personally say I think we can put a pencil to the other figure a little bit more between now and the last reading. And that's all I have.
Let me, since you brought that up, I want people to have a view of this, though, to give you just a little perspective. So, again, I go back to what I said a few minutes ago. We can't bet on money we don't have and not sure we're going to get. So it would be a bad day for us to pass operations, not pass any money for a building at all, and hope we get something from the legislature. And if, God forbid, we got zero money, now you've passed operations and not a place to put them. So just keep that in mind, that you got to think through the integration of these things and how they come about. Because if you get the money from the legislature, you can reduce the millage before it ever goes into effect. So it doesn't affect anybody except us trying to work it out up here. It doesn't affect the taxpayer if we get the money. So I just would keep that in mind. I don't know if I want to play personally, I'll speak for me. I don't think I want to play the game where we say, well, now we'll put the pressure on them to give us the money. Then what if they only give us $800,000? You know, I don't know what they can get us because they got to get it approved. The governor could deny it. There's all kinds of things that could happen. So I just want to put that out there too, that I'd rather know we're going to do it and then work backwards from there, like cut millage back. And if we can put it into the 2026 budget, 2026 ballot to put it on there and get it would be just a small part of the capital project sales tax, you can roll back more millage. But if the voters will approve that. So I'd rather set us up for success than set us up for let's gamble, would be my personal view of that. So just so everybody, if we're putting it on the table, I want to put that on the table too.
Well, I'm in total agree with, I've never been a big gambler, so I definitely don't want to gamble at this, but that's my saying on it. I'm quite
I would just like to say, working at school, seeing a SOR officer, even though we have our doors locked and it's mandatory, we still feel that comfortable knowing that if I go up to the front of the career center, I can look to the left at his office and just wave, Even though we have so many trainings at school, like the Alice training and all, it just do us, I just think, a world of goodness to have the SOR officer there. And I got to be honest, they have tapped on my door many times, Miss King, I'm just gonna pull your door up. I said, okay, I have a student went to the restroom or whatever. But I just like that reminded, And so now when I see him, he just throw the thumbs up, And it just make you feel so comfortable compared to seeing other people that have went through tragedy with no SOR officer there, I'm for the SOR officer. Walking the halls, and they are friendly. The children love them. Just to see, I passed by one the other day, the one in the front office at the high school. He was just they were just talking random about the basketball game, and I just thought that was so cool, Just having them on campus, we need that. And speaking on my two grands at Douglas Elementary, they love it, One said, I really want to be a police officer. So what? Okay. But they love it. I'm for the SOR officers. I am.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for any final comments before we adjourn?
I have none.
Okay. Thank everybody for going through this tonight, and we know the process then. We have a month, really almost a little over a month to think about this one. So we'll get together April 15th for first reading of the budget, plus the regular meeting, of course. So if there's nothing else then, council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Moody makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And Mr. Talbert seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody.